hope you've enjoyed your time here. Okay, and as we go along, if you have any questions, please ask a question. When we look at these rocks out here, the pink, what are called the pink cliffs, it's all part of a geology formation called the Claron Formation, and it formed in a vast lake that existed in this region between 40 and 50 million years ago. The lake was very shallow, and it was a very hard water lake, had a lot of dissolved iron, calcium, and magnesium in it. Okay? About 15 million years ago, this region was uplifted as part of the Colorado Plateau. The Colorado Plateau incorporates the Four Corners area where Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah come together. The uplift of the Colorado Plateau was 7,000 to 8,000 feet. Okay, and as it did so, it created a set of vertical fractures within the rock itself, and there's a set of parallel vertical fractures running to the northeast and another set running to the northwest. Okay, and so if you flew over Bryce Canyon and looked down, what you would see is kind of a checkerboard pattern. When you look out into this area here, you can actually see that at least to a degree. You can see where those features run one way and then they run the other. Okay, and it is along those vertical fractures that we get weathering and erosion. And weathering is the breakdown of rock, and erosion is the removal of that material. And the kind of weathering that we see here is called ice wedging. So water gets into the cracks and fractures of the rock and freezes, and when water freezes, what does it do? Expands, right. And so it breaks that rock apart. I came out here this past March, stood out here at Sunset Point very early in the morning when there was no wind, which is kind of unusual, and there were no visitors, and I could actually hear the rocks breaking. Okay? We have about 200 days a year where we get this freeze-thaw cycle, and that alternating freezing and thawing is very important. Then during the summer monsoons, July, August, and September, then we get thunderstorms up here on the rim, and it washes preferentially along those fracture zones and carries that material out. The net result is what we do is we create a fin of rock. So there would have been a fracture here and a fracture here, just like this fin that's sticking out right here. Okay, now there's another set of fractures. Okay, and what happens then, we get weathering and erosion along those. A window which is hard to demonstrate, a window opens up, and eventually the fin then separates into the hoodoos. Okay? But the hoodoos don't last forever, and eventually the hoodoos do collapse. Okay? So when you look out into the center of the amphitheater out here, you see those rounded hills out there? That's the hoodoo graveyard. Then as you come forward toward the rim, you have the hoodoos, and then finally you have the fins. So it's a constant process of weathering and erosion. The rim here retreats back at a rate of about 1 to 4 feet every 100 years. So when you all come back 100 years from now, we will move these fences. Okay. Now, who's been to the Grand Canyon? Okay, so how was the Grand Canyon formed? How was it formed? A river, right? Cutting down through it. Who's been to Zion Canyon? And how was Zion Canyon formed?
River.
By a river. Canyons are formed by rivers. Okay. So here at Bryce Canyon, when you look out here, do you all see a river? No. So Bryce Canyon is not a true canyon. Rather, it's an eroding, retreating plateau margin. But eroding, retreating plateau margin national park, it's too hard to say. Doesn't fit on a t-shirt. Okay. So this process of weathering and erosion, of forming fins and hoodoos and eventually hoodoo collapse is a constant process. And it's most dramatic in terms of the breaking of the rocks from November until the end of April, and then the erosion part occurs in July, August, and September, when we have flash floods down through the various canyons here.
So do you ever see one of those hoodoos crack off and fall?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. We had one that fell on Thanksgiving Day. Yeah. So so if you come back year after year and you kind of keep an eye on certain hoodoos, you will see changes to those hoodoos.
How did hoodoos get their name?
That we think the name is derived from the word voodoo. The fact that when you look at some of these hoodoos, they look like a human or some sort of figure, and a spell has been cast and they've been turned to stone. Okay. Other questions? Well, what we're going to do is just walk around the corner just a little ways.